Hello, Kaiju Seekers. Welcome to another Cryptic Happenings podcast. This is going to be the second episode in a long while since the first one, which went pretty well. And today it's obviously going to be a celebration of the 58th anniversary, I believe, of the Patterson Gimlin film, the very famous video that made Bigfoot the cultural phenomenon that it is, as well as the cryptic phenomenon, because that is almost, it probably somewhat is like the starting point for Bigfoot. And today, to celebrate, we're just going to be going through a bit of a, retrospective kind of thing, maybe a few discussions on it, giving my personal takes on it, discussing things like the people behind it, the theories that have popped up here and there, maybe going over some of the arguments for and against, as well as just also some. We're gonna be reacting to some videos, or at least one. So and then we're gonna be giving thoughts on that, videos on the Patterson Gimlin film and things like that, because I feel that the Patterson Gimlin film is gonna be one of the main things. It has been for the longest time. Um, just a topic of discussion in the cryptic community and things like the Bigfoot community as a whole. I feel like there's a large like set of people who are both for and against, and it's just amazing to see. And then before we start, I do want to dedicate a small portion to a big figure in the Bigfoot community who sadly passed away the other month. And let me just pull up some information here. Let's see. I just want to see if I can pull up a. Oh, here we go. Yes, Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum, who sadly passed away just the other month, who was a big figurehead in the community. So I'm going to be sharing my screen here to an obituary. So here we go. 1958 to 2025. And, let me just say, it was a big blow concerning I believe I woke up to this news, sadly, and just like a big wave hit me. I'm like, wow, oh my gosh. And it's sad because he, like I keep saying, he was a big figurehead. He was one of the leading experts in the field, whose big contribution always was to the anatomy of Bigfoot. Um, he was really in depth with one of the major pieces of physical evidence for Bigfoot being the footprints that are found, documented, casted, things like that. I believe he still had one of the largest collections of Bigfoot and Sasquatch footprints. So, and I'm wondering what they're going to be doing, but here's the obituary for it. Known for his research on primate locomotion and his work on Bigfoot, died in September. And it looks like it was about with brain cancers, and I don't believe anyone knew about it beforehand other than maybe close friends and family. And he died at 67, which is also crazy to me because that is a rather young age to die at, relatively. I mean, my own grandmother passed away at that around that age, so it does hit close to home in that sense, to where it is a tragic loss. And he worked at the ISU's Department of Biological Science since 1993, so still a pretty long career. known for his frequent casts, documentaries, interviews, and we may watch one of those with regards to actually. I don't know if he's in one of the videos, but I'll see if we can pull something up because I believe he had a lot to share with the. Actually, no, I do believe he's in one of the videos we might look at because he is again the leading expert and he's been in a lot of them. So if you want to go and see the whole thing for yourselves, it's the obituary you can find on Jeffrey Meldrum. And of course, as a whole, and we briefly saw the appearance of Lizard King Productions, who did join me on the last stream, who is unfortunately at work at the time I'm scheduling this. And there is a bit of conflict with the scheduling here today because another friend of mine, Zim, I believe he's having a stream later today, which is a little bit why I started this earlier, so that I could also join him on that later if he's open or watch it. But for us, we're going to be discussing again some things here, and I guess I'll start off by reacting to this new video from the channel in the Woods. He is a newcomer to the Bigfoot phenomenon and like Bigfoot, the Bigfoot world. I want to say I started out watching him, in fact, before he started doing his Bigfoot thing, because before he was just like as the name of the channel implies, he was just a he would do videos on building a cabin, I believe, like from scratch almost, I want to say, and he would do nature vlogs, things like that. So, and then I remember seeing his video of his like first encounter with Sasquatch, and since then I've been following his career. He's been talking a lot about some of like the past and current photographic evidence, video evidence, things like that. And he came out with a new video, which I'm assuming has to coincide with the anniversary since it is on the Patterson Gimlin film. He's done a few videos on it already, discussing some of the evidence for and against it. I've also seen a few other videos that have tried to debunk his claims. I feel that some of them are both fair and a little unfair, that don't go in depth on just like the history and like the science retrospective on the Patterson Gimlin film. It is a pretty interesting history, and also just like, I don't know what you'd call it, an afterlog of just like what the scientists say about the Patterson Gimlin film. Of course, give your thoughts below as we are going through. I'll feature them here. But yeah, Lizard Key Production was here earlier. I don't know if he's still here watching or listening. But I hope he has a good day at work. If he ever finds the time to join in, gladly invite him. But I'll also open the this up to my Discord friends before we start. And let's see here. All right. And again, anyone joining in, leave your comments down below. Cool. Awesome. So I sent out a link to Discord. Hey, what's up, Antonio Hoshi? I'm just talking about the Patterson Gimlin film. We're going to be going over some videos on it, discussing its history, things like that. Right now, I'm going to be reacting to a video from Cabin in the Woods, as anyone might know, up and coming YouTuber in the Bigfoot world, and hopefully I'll be able to hear it smoothly through my headphones and this screen sharing. So apparently there are two facts that prove it true. So we're going to be discussing those. Now let's see here. So forgive me if anyone joins in while I'm watching this.
What if I told you that the most
Going
famous
back.
Bigfoot film ever recorded, the Patterson Gimlin film, not only proves that Sasquatches exist, but also that the man who claims he wore the ape suit that day may have been telling the truth in his own strange way? Sounds impossible, right? But today, I'm going to show you why this paradox actually makes sense. Stick with me, and by the end of this video, you'll see how the evidence stacks up to prove not only that the Patterson Gimlin film is authentic.
Alrighty then. So yeah, there you go. There's a little bit of film, but let's see. I do have. Hey Hoshi, what's up?
Hey, what's up, man? How are you doing?
Doing good. And then also, I just wanted to wish you again a very happy birthday. Um, Hopefully, you're spending it or have spent it well.
Thank you, man. That means genuinely a lot to me. I recently watched. You just saw in our channel that you basically posted, your drawing of my kaiju Apu, and like we'll tell you is, thank you, Vic. Thank you so much for being a genuinely awesome dude for doing such a thing. It means a lot to me. I even showed it to my mom and my sister for your great art.
Awesome, thank you. I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, it's just once I learned, oh, it's your birthday, I'm gonna go ahead and finish that drawing I promised you. But I'm glad you liked it. It was a lot of fun. Um, like doing all of the I think the patterns and stuff are some of my favorite things to draw there. But yeah, I think
I
it's a really cool kaiju, and I really love how you draw him. I think he's super cool. Um, and yeah, I'm
also
hoping I can do
I was just
justice.
gonna say that next month that I will probably finally do a one shot manga.
Oh, that sounds great. Good luck on that, man. I mean, I've tried to draw manga before. It is a lot of work, um, but I'm sure you'll be great at it. You have a lot of cool things with your art that I think you could pull off well.
Also, hey, by the
So
way, have you seen the couple of art I sent on both Instagram and on Twitter?
yeah, I've been seeing a lot of that art. Really cool stuff.
Yeah. The reason why I'm telling you right now is that I'm not gonna be for quite a while. I'm just here to tell you that thank you for drawing my kaiju and just telling you that your heads up that I'll be doing manga next month because
Mhm.
next month on my city there's gonna be a festival when it comes to a comic books. It's gonna be some kind of event that I will try not to be late and participate in it.
Yeah, no problem, man. You go ahead and just keep working on it. Do whatever you need to.
But other than that, I think I'm going to be leaving right now. Thank you, Vic, for saying happy birthday to me, and I hope you have a wonderful day as well. And also, by the way, I forgot to tell you, have watched the latest episodes of Gachakta?
No, I have not. I have not seen the latest episode, but I am gonna start catching up soon.
Okay, thank you for having me on, and have a wonderful day.
Bye, man. Have a good one. Alrighty. Again, that was Hoshi there. And now let's get back to the video. Thank you for stopping by.
But that it's far more mysterious than many thought, myself included. Part 1. Setting the stage. Let's go
Yeah.
back to the fall of 1967.
I think his formatting is pretty good. Like he does present his points pretty consistently and in a nice little format structure. So that's the one thing I like about him, other than his general personality, which you might get a little bit of there in his introductions. He always does a face cam when he's walking through the woods, and there presents some nice B footage background of other um I don't know what they're from, but there's just other B like like background footage. He's This is a nice overall presentation. Um, not a jab at the guy, since this isn't a witch hunt or anything like that, and there's nothing I majorly think is too wrong with it. Um, just a little mention. Sometimes he will feature some art, some of it that appears to be like AI created, which is a bummer, but nothing we should harp the guy on. I'm not condoning any harassment to be sent his way, as just a preface, okay? But continue.
Bluff Creek in the Six Rivers National Forest of Northern California, long considered ground zero for Bigfoot reports. For years, loggers, hunters, and locals had been finding unusually large, human like footprints
Of
along the
course,
creek
there
bed.
is Rodger Patterson. He was the one of the two men who rode that day along with Bob Gimlin. Uh, Tragically, he died January 15th, 1972. And beforehand, I believe he had a lot of like titles to his name. Like I believe it was like he was in rodeos. He did other like short films, did like novels, things like that. He's a little bit of an artist as well, so you have that side of him too. And of course, as you might explain here, the whole filming that he was doing originated with a Bigfoot documentary with him investigating all of the recent tracks discovered by the said mentioned logging crew. So,
Footprints ranging from 13 to 18 inches long. Rodger Patterson, a rodeo cowboy turned filmmaker who'd long been obsessed with the legend, was actively trying to make a documentary
mhm,
about Sasquatch, and he'd been
as mentioned.
following leads and visiting sighting areas for years at this point. That's why he was at Bluff Creek that day with Bob Gimlin, a Yakima horseman who happened to be riding with him on this particular expedition.
We were just riding up the creek bed, and Roger was taking pictures of the beautiful
This is a
colors
very
of the fall
pretty famous
colors
interview
of the
of him
trees
retelling
and
the
the
story.
brush and all that. And all at once, there one stood across the creek from us.
On October 20th, just after 1 p.m., the two men rounded a bend and saw her, a massive, hair covered figure crossing the sandbar,
Very
glancing
famous
back in
shot.
that iconic look over the shoulder. Patterson's horse reared up and threw him, but somehow he still managed to grab his rented Cine Kodak film camera and filmed those precious 60 seconds of footage while Bob Gimlin steadied the spooked horses and watched in stunned silence.
Roger had his had the camera up to his eye, of course, and he kind of stumbled and fell down on his elbows.
Of course, just to mention, it's probably the most one of the most famous pieces of footage. Like that iconic image of Bigfoot is probably seen, worldwide, like as the image is Bigfoot. And I think no matter what, the fact that these men were able to achieve that is pretty stellar and like mind blowing in my opinion. Because I mean, look at what it started. Like, no matter what you believe, it's undeniable that like these guys like gave rise to an absolute legend. Like, there's nothing else you can really call it. So that's pretty like amazing, I would say.
And he wasn't really sure if he got sand or whatever in the camera. Of course, Roger's horse just went berserk. Well, mine did too, but I was able to stay on him. But when I got down on the ground, uh, it was a different story. Massive muscle. Uh,
I might go more in depth with this later, but and then also Cabin in the Woods might as well. But I'll add any commentary in my end. But like, there's a lot going on with Patty herself, which is the name given to the creature here on the tape. And you know, my personal belief is that there is a lot more going on than it probably just being a suit. Like, of course, I believe in Bigfoot as a living creature, and I believe that this film is probably legit. And it's due to a lot of different factors that people have discussed before when they're like supporting the film as a genuine creature. Um, and like even like Roger or Bob Gimlin has like vouched for what he saw that day.
just bulk muscle.
Chances are you've seen a copy of that footage. Most people have. But almost every version online is a copy of a copy of a copy, degraded, blurry, grainy, and stripped of meaningful detail. That's why the film remains so hotly debated. Skeptics dismiss it as a blurry man in a suit, but believers say the movement and anatomy are impossible to fake. Some skeptics point to Patterson's timing and call it suspiciously lucky, but that ignores the record. See, Patterson had been pursuing sightings and building a film project for years at this point. He wasn't just a one off tourist who got lucky.
It's really important to remember Rodger Patterson was going to that spot in Bluff Creek since 1962. So he'd been going there for 5 years, for long periods of time. Persistency just pays off.
Yeah, and I agree with that statement that like people dismiss like oh, you have Bigfoot on the brain, or how could you get so lucky as to find what you're looking for? Um, and of course, as I said before, like Roger Patterson had a history of trying to search for whatever Sasquatch was believed to be. He was initially investigating the original footprints found by like the logging crews, like back in the legendary like documentations of it, where it got the name Bigfoot to start from. And I think it's like preposterous to say like, oh, he's faked it because he was already looking for it. That's like saying like that's like not believing someone who went to look for a bear that they saw a bear. Like, you know. So you can never really dismiss something just for someone going to look for it and then finding it, even if it's an unbelievable thing they're trying to find. Like if they come out of it having found some evidence of it, you can't really just say, "Oh, you just have Bigfoot on the brain," or you're just taking everything as Bigfoot. There's no way you could have found it. You got so lucky. So yeah, that's a sentiment I agree with, and like, it's not really something that should be like used as a point against him, especially given he had a history of like wanting to find this thing.
To judge either side accurately, we have to see the film as Patterson and Gimlin saw it: sharp, vivid, and frankly, downright startling. And then we can decide, is this a hoax
The footage has
or
always been
undeniable proof?
very pretty to me as well.
By the way, if you're enjoying this content and want more of the deepest dives and the most compelling evidence for the existence of the Sasquatch species, then hit that subscribe button and notification bell. You won't get dives this deep anywhere else on the internet. I've also recently launched a Cabin in the Woods Patreon page where you can connect with me and my Bigfoot evidence a whole lot more directly and intimately. I'll tell you more about it at the end of the video. Part 2.
Yeah, guys, and also I'd say if you're enjoying what you're seeing so far, like go support him. Again, he's an up and coming Bigfoot YouTuber, and again, he didn't start that way. I remember watching him, I believe, like just for his nature videos and things like that, beforehand, and it's been amazing to see all the stuff he's done. I feel like there's some stuff I don't agree with him on. Other things I think, oh yeah, I never really thought about that way, as well as a few revelations and things like that. So yeah, I'd say go support him if you like what he seems so far. Want to keep up on his stuff? Go check him out. I heavily recommend it.
Todd Gatewood and the real film quality. Enter Todd Gatewood. He's not just some hobbyist fiddling with film. He's a restoration expert and film historian who's been at this for years. Todd actually started out as a photo archivist, restoring and preserving old photographs with Marshall oils on Kodak Ectoler G prints. Eventually, he moved into the digital darkroom and editing suite, bringing those same skills into modern film work. And for him, the Patterson Gimlin film has always been personal.
Yeah, the individual Todd Gatewood was not something I had heard, or not someone I had heard of until Cabin in the Woods started featuring his work, which is super interesting. I think it's pretty neat. Concerning, I think Todd Gatewood stuff is pretty interesting, and I would just need to, gather my thoughts on some of the stuff he's presented, which I think is both super interesting, super vital to the film. But also some stuff that I'm questioning just because I don't really know. I can't really put like words to it of like what it looks like. Like I think that previous image there is a really interesting restoration of what Patty's face looked like, and I think Kevin Woods has done videos on that specific image before as well.
He's been fascinated with it since the first day he saw it, as many of us have, if we're honest. And that's why in 2024, he finally set out to do what no one else has done properly: copy the film frame by frame and restore every frame to absolute perfection, all nearly 1,000 of them, down to the last detail. It's a long and arduous process, and even after months, Todd's still not done. That's because he's going through the footage by hand, removing dust, repairing scratches.
Yeah, so like this image here is super interesting since it is like a pretty, I don't know, it's just an interesting restoration of what Patty supposedly looked like. Like the fur is all shaggy and things like that. You can see lots of definition in like the face and things. Like it almost looks unreal in the sense that I've never seen this creature. I've never had a face to face encounter of any kind. And I've only seen the blurry images, the blob squatches, things like that. And even with the most, like, it is undeniably the best piece of evidence considering it's either one of two things. It's either a guy in a suit or it's an actual Sasquatch. But given that you've never seen Sasquatch before, or had the clearest, anatomical, specimen to look at, like to see that this is what they probably and actually look like is interesting. And I don't know if it's just because of how he restored it or just what she looks like. Like it looks oddly feminine, and I don't know if that's just because of the shadows of the fur coming over the eyes or if there's actual eyelashes there. But I don't know. There's something oddly feminine about this, and given that Patty is um, seen to be a female, featuring mammary glands, as most mammals, all mammals do, I believe. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, it's just like interesting to see because to be honest, in a lot of ways, this looks like a genuine animal, and in some ways, just because of the unbelievability of it, like it somewhat just looks vaguely like something man-made. But I've seen shaggy animals, I've seen wild animals that have been like disheveled and things like that. But like it's just fairly interesting. It is really interesting, and there's also lots of points to it being not a costume because of just how the creature moves in the film. It moves in a ways that like most costumes don't. It doesn't look like most costumes don't, so it's super interesting there. Very interesting image.
That's because he's going through the footage by hand, removing dust, repairing scratches, color correcting, basically making sure every frame is as clean and clear as possible. There's still a long way to go, but the difference is already staggering. See, most people are used to seeing VHS transfers or fifth generation digital copies of the Patterson film. That's why skeptics tend to laugh and say the film is too blurry to make out any detail. But when Todd scans and restores the film the right way, a whole new level of detail emerges.
I'd like to comment about why the Patterson film is really still the benchmark, and it's quite simply in its name, film. Film is far better than what came after it, and it was shot in 67, and in the 70s, right after that, we went to VHS. And we all know that VHS is a terrible format for preservation or
Yeah, that's another interesting aspect to it. Like the fact that it is on a film camera, a genuine film camera, is pretty remarkable as well. Um, and just like, and yeah, it is weird because the original film that they like, I guess the film that just came straight out of the camera is lost. It is lost media at this point. or at least like lost physical media, because no one really knows what happened. Like apparently it went through a few chains of custody, like to where I think like people believe it's like probably in a vault somewhere. But some other like I don't know what they call it, like second generation copies, first generations have been found and used to restore the film. I think I watched if you watch the 50th anniversary episode for the on Finding Bigfoot on this film, they were able to find another copy and use it to do like at that time another perfect restoration of that one famous image. So it's super interesting to see how, with it being film, how much information you can get out of it, um, with like the fresh few copies that were ever made of it.
Just in and of itself. They don't shoot movies on VHS. Theatrical movies are still always shot on film. And every time you try to shoot digital, you can't zoom in. There's just nowhere to go. Whereas film, you can zoom in. There is somewhere to go still, and you can have clarity. Rodger
That's an
Patterson
interesting
was a
way to look at it.
filmmaker, and he was skilled. And the film he has is beautiful. And I'm going to show the world all 1,000 or so frames of it that have never been seen like this before.
Here's one example. This well-known portrait of Paddy's face, Paddy being the subject of the Patterson Gimlin film, it's actually a zoomed-in version of frame 364 from the film. The version people see online is, again, a fifth-generation low-quality copy, but the original master film was photographed onto 4x5 large-format negatives, which hold incredible resolution.
Yeah.
Back in the 1980s, Bruce Bonney at the University of Texas analyzed those large format negatives and confirmed details right down to Paddy's eyelashes.
Oh
This
yeah.
is proof
There you
that
go.
Todd didn't draw in these details or use AI to generate them. They're simply what was originally captured by Rodger Patterson's camera, but couldn't be seen prior to a full restoration with modern technology. That kind of clarity simply doesn't survive in the degraded copies most of us have been watching for decades. Now, if you're skeptical, I get it. You're likely thinking something like, yeah, sure, there's no way Todd could pull that level of detail from this old film. And I hear you. At first
Super
glance, it
interesting
does
aspect
seem
again.
very far-fetched. But here's the thing you need to understand. 16 millimeter film from the 1960s, when scanned
Yeah, that's an aspect I didn't really think about, because with digital you zoom in, it's all pixelated, whereas opposed to this, I guess with the original copies and stuff, zooming in you would see a lot more like just what is in frame for the most part. And so again, given that the Patterson Gimlin film is on that like physical film, there's a lot more to see with just what you can like gather and stuff if you have like the best tech with the best copies of the film. Mm. There you go. Well, yeah, super interesting, super neat. Let's get back into the video.
properly actually reveals more detail than modern 4K video. That's why in Todd's restored frames, you're not just seeing a blurry figure. You're seeing muscle groups flexing in Paddy's legs, back, and triceps. You're seeing fat pads shifting under the skin. Anatomical detail that no costume in 1967, or honestly, even today, could properly replicate.
Yeah, and like I think I am super on board with the whole with the observation of how you can see the like the muscle groups there, because I genuinely see it. Some people say, oh, it's too blurry to see, but like even given its quality, like you can still clearly see some movement and just how this body is being shaped and moved around. Like it's not like just the use of a costume. And the reason I also say that is that I have never seen a costume that is as good as what you see here on screen. And because I mean, if you think about it, you have things like the $1 Million Man, I believe, with its Bigfoot suit, which is basically just Andre the Giant in this furry pajama suit. And then you have 2001 Space Odyssey a few years later with its monkeys, and they're just a bunch of skinny monkeys that obviously are in a suit. And then you have Planet of the Apes, which came out I think like a year or two after the Patterson Gimlin film. And as good as they are as special effects, as them being convincing as that it's a real creature, like I don't think they're as good. In fact, a lot of it was a compromise because they didn't want to do any of the suits, because again, suits were very difficult to pull off and feel believable. So I think that's the one other thing that goes towards the film is that and I think some other suit actors, suit makers, things like that say, this is too advanced to be a suit for what was available at the time. And I've also heard other experts saying how it's a suit and things like that, and things they could have done, which I think is fair, from the expert's point of view and things like that, which I think we should take into consideration. But do not not consider what the supporters are saying when it comes to how this might be a suit or not.
Part 3. Bill Munn's Creature Effects and Paddy's Anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
That brings us to Bill Munn's. Bill spent decades in Hollywood creature effects, designing suits, makeup,
I should probably
and
watch
prosthetics.
Swamp Thing.
He
I've been
knows
meaning
exactly what could and couldn't be done in
Oh,
the
look,
1960s
Gargantuous.
in this field. And Bill's
super
conclusion
cool.
is clear. Paddy is not a man in a suit. Here's why.
One of them is the shape and size of the head. The human has a skull where the cranial vault, the top of the head, the skull, goes almost straight up from the brow ridge before it curves into the roundness of the skull. So we can't cut that off. We can't remove it. If we want to create a head that has some semblance to a more ape-like head, and Patty, the character or creature in the Patterson film, she has a very, very distinctive ape-like head with a very flat cranial vault. Okay, if we try to create that, we have a problem in that we can't subtract the...
Probably, probably just the quality of the call on Bill Munn's part. I wish I could have added some subtitles there. That would have been pretty helpful. But I can't get the gist. I remember this argument being made as to why it's not a costume, given the anatomy of the head. It'd be difficult to fit a human head in it, if you do the proportions right. And it's an interesting fact that I learned just for gorilla suits, that it's difficult to make them believable because you have to enlarge the head in order to fit a human in there. Just because of the anatomy, it doesn't really work that way. So that's another interesting aspect of it. Just how much different humans are from other great apes.
high rising skull of the human. So what we would have to do is we would have to try and do what we call a cheat. We try to create an illusion of a different shape. And trying to create the illusion of a much flatter skull requires that we pull the eyebrow ridge far out beyond the human eyebrow. And then in order to get a more ape-like face, we have to pull the muzzle, the mouth area below the nose, we have to pull that out a lot further, so it's much further out than this brow we've now added. And only if we do that can we sort of then slope the forehead after the brow ridge up.
Again, those effects are really cool
sort of then
as special effects. And it's a lot. It is believable movement, but you don't really see that in like real animals. because I think the effects are stellar. They're really good special effects, but they were held back by the fact that they couldn't really do that for the rest of the body, and no movie in those like few years before or after really pulled it off. Because again, like Andre the Giant, Bigfoot is just like him in like a pajama suit, and then you have Planet of the Apes where they were only confined to like the head and like hands of all the apes, and then you have 2001 where they look like just people, skinny people in ape suits. Whereas Patty, you have like this genuinely like built physical creature that I believe it is, just from looking at the film, because like it doesn't move like a suit. It doesn't. It doesn't really. I don't know. Like that's just the feeling I get, and then the observations of it as well. Like it just is like a genuinely interesting like documentation of whatever she was, and like I believe it is a genuine creature, and like I could never really know until we like find Bigfoot and are able to match the anatomy to what we saw that day, what we see on that film. Like the only thing that confirm it 100% is just finding Bigfoot, documenting the anatomy, and seeing how well the anatomy of the creature we find matches Patty. And that would be the only way to really confirm whether or not Patty is a genuine Sasquatch. Um, but like I said, no effects really match to what we see on film. And I think other documentation before has found that you can see facial movement in Patty's face. You can also see movement in the way her mammary glands move as well. And then also her feet. You can see the flexibility of Patty's feet as she walks through the sand in the the creek. And it also shows in like another piece of thing I'll go over when it comes to like the footprints, because there's just is not the film is not the only piece of evidence to support the encounter, and we'll probably go over that later today.
Forehead after the brow ridge up in a more gentle angle as it goes to meet the real forehead of the person. That's the typical way of cheating to make a human head look more like an ape head. Problem is, it makes the head very big relative to the body. Now, if we look at Patty, her head relative to her body is remarkably compact. Okay. The effect we expect to see, a bigger head in proportion to body, simply is not on the film.
But Bill also adds something here that's really interesting about the psychology of experts. Skeptics are quick to point out that when Stan Winston, one of the most famous Hollywood effects artists in history, was asked about the Patterson Gimlin film, he dismissed it quickly as, quote, a man in a suit. But Bill points out why comments like this aren't necessarily evidence against the film.
In the profession, there's a certain mindset. It's kind of a professional sense of bravado of nobody can fool me. I can spot a fake every time. And anytime you show them something unusual and controversial, they tend to immediately say, of course it's a fake. Not because that's their true analysis. They're doing it because of a public relations standpoint. It makes them look smarter. Now, Stan in particular had a very unpleasant experience. A film was released called The Alien Autopsy, and it purported to show doctors in scrubs and surgical outfits and masks leaning over a dead alien, and they were literally autopsying the body, supposedly a creature that was found after the Roswell crash in New Mexico. So somebody had this film called The Alien Autopsy, and they were floating it around Hollywood asking people, is it real? You know? And Stan and a couple of his key lieutenants in his company, they were shown the film, and the producers actually filmed them viewing it and discussing it. And he was analyzing it meticulously, very admirably and professionally. And he came to the conclusion, he said, if this is a fake, whoever did it has a job opening waiting for them in my company anytime. It's that good. Okay? But other makeup artists who looked at it took one look at it and said, nah, it's a fake. Didn't fool me for a second. I could do better. Okay? Then it turns out, finally, it's revealed, yes, it was a fake. The unconventional techniques used were because the person did the fake.
I think a lot of trouble understanding like what Bill Munns is saying, honestly. Like only certain parts I feel are like kind of audible. But it sucks because I think Bill Munns has a lot to offer. I don't know if this was either on the call he made with Cabin in the Woods or if like something in the audio, the editing went bad, but I hope he can add some like subtitles to like what Bill Munns is saying, because it's a little rough. Of
the body was not a classical makeup artist, but rather a sculptor who thought about materials in a different way, and so he used unconventional techniques. That's what threw Stan off.
Well, then again, it could
but
be
what
me.
Stan was doing was being scientifically responsible. Stan was taking the proper analytical approach. The guys who dismissed it, they looked like the smart ones. And Stan, because he was cautious, because he really wanted to study it, he really wanted to give it serious, responsible consideration, it looked like he wasn't as smart as the other guys. So the people who dismissed it out of hand looked smarter than Stan. Okay, he didn't like that. Stan had an ego. He was a brilliant artist, but boy, he definitely had an ego, and he loved being at the top of his craft. So after that, he learned his lesson. You show him footage of something really weird and say, is this real or is this fake? He's going to do what the smart person is expected to do. He's going to say, nah, it's a fake. Didn't fool me for a second. Looks like crap. I'd fire anybody who did something that bad. So when he came to the Patty footage, he had been burned by the alien autopsy thing. And he wasn't about to make the same mistake again. He wasn't about to go in saying, well, just on a superficial study, I can't say for sure if it's real or fake. I would have to study it more to make a determination. He couldn't say that. That would make him look like he was not as smart as the ones who dismissed it out of hand.
Basically, no one in the costume and special effects industry wants to admit that they've been fooled. It's much easier when confronted with something like the Patterson Gimlin film to simply point and say, it's a suit, even if you don't have solid logical reasons for doing so. And that appears to be what Stan Winston did. But Bill, who studied the film in incredible depth and detail for decades, says that the evidence of it not being a suit is overwhelming.
Now, with the Patty thing, I could have been in the same boat. A lot of people, makeup artists.
That's a pretty interesting thing to think about, because like I know it's something you see not even just with like the filmmaking department. It's like a lot of people dismiss it out of hand. Like one egregious thing recently was the Corridor Crews. Like I love those guys; they do good work, but I don't think they gave the Patterson Gimlin film the time of day and just dismissed everything offhandedly. Because like again, like there is that stigma about it, but you need to look at these things like fairly critically to get the whole picture, and you need context. And they've done some good work debunking things like that, the alien stuff, cryptid stuff, but I don't think they give all their stuff the time of day like as most people would. Because there's a lot of things they said that are just factually untrue when it comes to what people have found with the film. So I think it's a somewhat fair thing to say when they don't take into account everything that happened with the film, all of the evidence surrounding the film, which I'll bring up later because, again, it is a fairly interesting thing to look at because the film is not the only piece of evidence of the encounter. There's a lot of documentation that happened that found lots of things that point into this being an actual genuine encounter. So we'll go into that later.
Once have looked at it and said, "Oh, it's a fake. I could do better than that with one arm tied behind my back." That's that kind of bravado of see how smart I am. I never fooled.
Okay, then it's probably just me then.
In the same boat. A lot of people, makeup artists, have looked at it and said, "Oh, it's a fake. I could do better than that with."
Okay, it's probably been just me for the audio then, because there's no way it can be this bad. Because my headphones have always been janky.
Not being a suit is overwhelming.
But he sounds just fine.
Now, with the Patty thing, I could have been in the same boat.
Let me know if you can hear Bill Munn's coming through clearly.
I could do better than that with one arm tied behind my back. That's that kind of bravado of see how smart I am. I'm never fooled by another person's work. And when I went into it, I said, I don't know if this is real or fake. I'm going to look at it carefully, and then I'm going to decide. And then I came to the conclusion
but even just there,
real. Now, if
how she walks is pretty interesting.
Would have been in the same boat. A lot of people, makeup artists, have looked at it and said, "Oh, it's a fake. I could do better than that with one arm tied behind my back." That's that kind of bravado of see how smart I am. I'm never fooled by another person's work. And when I went into it, I said, I don't know if this is real or fake. I'm going to look at it carefully, and then I'm going to decide. And then I came to the conclusion that it's real. Now, if by some chance someone came along and proved conclusively that it was fake, then of course I would look like an idiot. But 57, 58 years after it was filmed, nobody's come across with any such proof. Nobody's even come close. There's nothing even remotely resembling a good proof that this is a costume with a human inside. So my conclusion still stands. But a lot of makeup effects people were thinking about their career. They weren't really concerned with this film and validating it or not. So it was easier for a lot of them to just look at it and say, "Nah, it's fake. Didn't fool me for a second. I could do better than that." John Chambers luckily didn't have that kind of an ego. When he was asked if he did it, is it the costume and did you make it? His response was, "I'm good, but I'm not that good." So the people at the time actually were very realistic in appraising it. But a lot of the newer people looking at it in the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, they're caught up in this mentality of nobody can fool me. I can spot a fake every time. So they don't really care whether it's real or not. They just care about looking good in the public. And they all know about what happened to Stan. He tried to do it right, and he was embarrassed because it turned out to be a fake. And he didn't pronounce it a fake instantly. That meant he wasn't as smart as the people who judged it fake right away. People were aware of that and decided, I don't want to do what Stan did. I don't want to make that mistake.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know about the history of with the alien autopsy film. So it's interesting to see how Stan both watched this and then watched Patty. It sucks to see because I think again dismissing the film outright doesn't it disservice, because this is something I even say with film critique and all the streams I've done on other things. You need to give things a fair shake in order to fairly and accurately judge it on its merits. You can't just dismiss something outright before you even give it the time of day.
Show me something weird, some alien, some funny creature, and ask me if it's real or not. I'm going to tell you it's fake simply because that makes me look smarter, and that's better for my profession. So that's actually what's happening. with a lot of the makeup artists in the business.
Well, that's certainly unfortunate that ego fuels these bravado-focused claims and statements. Very few, from what I've seen, have taken the trouble to give it more than a passing glance. And obviously, I don't think there's anyone besides yourself, Bill, who's gone to the incredible depths to analyze this that you have. But that makes a lot of sense. I had no idea that Stan had that embarrassing experience, but certainly ego can be a powerful force in making certain claims with confidence, even if the confidence isn't warranted or based on logical analysis.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is a flaw of many fields or crafts.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things said there. And again, I've said myself, don't dismiss things outright without giving them fair analysis.
Even if the confidence isn't warranted or based on logical analysis.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is a flaw of many fields or crafts. And Hollywood, of course, is filled with pretentious people who want to give an appearance of being the expert, the best, the top, the pinnacle.
Part 4, the Hieronymus Paradox.
Mm-hmm.
Now here's where it gets really wild. If you've studied the Patterson Gimlin film at all, then you've probably heard of Bob Hieronymus.
Yeah.
He claimed that Rodger Patterson paid him to wear a gorilla suit and walk across the clearing in Bluff Creek that day in '67.
And I don't buy any of
Skeptics
this
love
story.
this story. They trot it out constantly as if it magically explains everything. But Bill Munns points out something fascinating here.
When Rodger Patterson came to the lab...
Okay, I want to see if I can retry hear this, because sadly my audio, when it comes to video playing, has never been the best with my headphones. I need to get new headphones. But...
Explains everything. But Bill Munns points out something fascinating here.
When Rodger Patterson came to the lab with some footage he had shot of a tall friend of his in an ape suit, and they screened the footage.
Just to talk about something, because sadly I can't hear what Bill Munns is saying. I don't know why. I can hear Todd Gatewood and Cabin in the Woods just fine, but for some reason I just can't hear Bill Munns the same. Let me know, anyone, if you're hearing him clearly. But this is the BBC reenactment, which I think fails miserably to try to recapture what Rodger Patterson and Bob Gimlin captured. Like, what, by then it was like about 30 years or so, nearly, at that time. And if you look at it side by side, you can clearly see how costumes just don't match what Patty is.
And they all laughed at how silly it was and how fake it looked. Okay, he was producing a documentary about Bigfoot. Okay,
right.
Anyone at the time who was producing a documentary about Bigfoot, basically all they have is pictures of footprint plaster casts, or maybe a footprint in the ground, and people talking about an encounter. Okay. Yeah, I went out in the backyard, and it was over there in the woods, and I saw it, or I was driving along the road, and it ran across the front. All you have is people talking about an incident. That's what we call talking heads. A documentary that's just talking heads is boring. People don't like it. Producers don't like to produce talking heads. They have to do a little of it, yeah, but they want something more visual. So any responsible documentary producer at the time, if they were making a film documentary about Bigfoot, and they were talking to people about various sightings and evidence and encounters and reports and this and that, it would be the most natural thing in the world for any responsible producer to say, we have to give our audience something more visual. We have to take one of these reported sightings.
Yeah, super interesting. And just more of BBC stuff. Which again, like, I think even some modern stuff that's tried to recreate what Patty was don't really get it right. And earlier Bob Hieronymus was mentioned, and I think we're probably going to go more into it here, but I absolutely oppose that story. I don't believe anything what they say. They contradict themselves at every turn. The Bigfoot suits that they produce don't even match what Patty was in any way. It's just like completely ludicrous in my opinion.
And we have to dress somebody up like a Bigfoot and recreate it. You know, we will label it recreation so that people know that we're putting on a show to illustrate what somebody claims to have seen. But they would do that. There's no intent to deceive. It's simply to make the program more visually interesting. Any responsible film producer doing a Bigfoot documentary would have done that. So maybe Rodger did get a costume, possibly from Philip Morris. Maybe he really did ask Bob Hieronymus to put on a costume, go with him into the woods. He filmed Bob, and then afterwards took the film to Canada West Lab, and they all looked at it and laughed at how silly it was. So he just put the film on the shelf. He couldn't use it for his documentary. It was too phony looking. Then later, he goes to Bluff Creek and he films the real thing. Now, in my opinion, that's actually what happened. So I think Rodger actually did film Bob Hieronymus in a costume.
If this is true, Patterson would no doubt have been fully expecting that these staged scenes would look crude compared to anything real. So really, Hieronymus could be both lying and telling the truth in a weird way, simply misidentifying which piece of footage he was actually in. This is fascinating because it fundamentally changes the meaning of Bob Hieronymus's later claim. Decades after the fact, he sees the now famous Patterson Gimlin film and thinks, hey, that's me. Now, according to Bill Munns, Bob's actually remembering a staged reel that Rodger Patterson did shoot of Bob wearing an ape suit for Patterson's Sasquatch documentary. And then Hieronymus is misidentifying the actual Patterson Gimlin film shot later as that staged reel that he was in. So really, Hieronymus could be both lying and telling the truth in a weird way, simply misidentifying which piece of footage he was actually in.
Okay, that's an interesting take on the story. A little weird considering, because again, you have to think about the other thing. Like I said, there's like a lot of there's like a lot of contradicting claims though on how they made the suit in the first place, which I guess can come from the lack of memory, but also like even if he did film some stuff with Rodger, we've never seen it. Like we would have to try and find that footage. I know there's a lot of documentaries that do that, where they have that stage footage of someone in a suit walking around as B footage. But like, we would just need to find those reels and compare. Excuse me. We would just have to find those pieces of footage and compare, like what it looked like. How does it hold up against Patty? So super interesting take. I've never really heard that one before, but yeah, super interesting. Like, could have Bob Hieronymus like have actually done some work for Rodger? Sure, I think they probably did know each other. I think they have known each other. But
I'll admit that all this sounds pretty sketchy and confusing at first glance. But if Munns is right, then Rodger wasn't trying to trick anyone. He simply hired people to help shoot a documentary. He hired a suit maker to build demonstration costumes, and he used a stand-in for staged segments because that's how documentary filmmaking often works when you don't expect to capture the real thing. He didn't set out to pass off a staged scene as definitive evidence of a species. He was just trying to build a film that conveyed the phenomenon: footprints, eyewitness testimony, and recreations. And then, after years of searching, by sheer luck, or maybe fate, he also happened to capture the single most compelling piece of real Bigfoot footage that the field has ever seen. So, I'll be honest, I used to treat Hieronymus, the man who claims he was Paddy, and Philip Morris, the man who claims he made the suit in the film, as plain liars. I've said before that their recreated suit and
Yeah, like look at that. Like you put them side by side proportionally, they don't match. And like it's just like obvious to see. Like the suit doesn't work the same. The proportions are off. Like, and I think the sheer fact is just how much the arms are longer, and like I don't think even extensions at the time would have helped, because they keep saying a lot of different things. Like they put football pads under the suit, they put extensions in it, but that doesn't really account for how the thing moves. Because you can see there's movement in both the arms, the hands, fingers in the film, as well as the feet, the legs, things like that, and it just doesn't match up to what Bob Hieronymus and Phil Morris, this new suit, do. So, I don't believe the story, and like given this new theory, like I still say that like their story of them making the suit that we see in the film, I don't believe that.
look
Oh, excuse me. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
laughable compared to Paddy. But Munz's theory makes sense of this, too. See, if Morris later tried to recreate the suit he claims he sold to Patterson, and Bob Hieronymus put it on for those staged shots, of course it looks bad next to the real Patterson-Gimlin film subject. That would be exactly what you'd expect. A staged demonstration suit versus a completely different biological subject captured on film under field conditions. Bottom line, the Hieronymus story doesn't have to be a smoking gun that kills the Patterson-Gimlin film's credibility. If you follow Munz's line of reasoning, and no one on earth, to my knowledge, has looked into this as deeply and for as long as Bill Munz has, then Bob Hieronymus' story isn't a neat rebuttal to the film at all. It's a complication, one that actually fits with Patterson being a documentarian who used every tool at.
I haven't really seen much of the footage with Rodger in it. This is super interesting. I'll probably have to check these out afterwards. I mostly just know him from all of the other small things he's done. Mostly Paddy, and then some of his other novel works that I've seen his illustrations as well. That's super interesting.
His disposal, and with the possibility that on one extraordinary day he captured something he never expected to on film. So that's the paradox. Skeptics have leaned on Hieronymus for decades as proof that the Patterson-Gimlin film is fake, but what if Bob's memory actually corroborates Rodger Patterson's fieldwork pattern? Part 5. Addressing skeptical claims. First of all, we've got the so-called deathbed confession. Rodger Patterson unfortunately died of lymphoma just 5 years after capturing the Patterson-Gimlin film, and some people claim that he admitted on his deathbed that the film was fake. But the truth, that confession.
That's also a horrible lie to say about someone.
No source, no evidence
a
whatsoever.
Deathbed confession.
It's simply an unfounded myth that keeps getting repeated. Secondly, we've got the idea that someone in 1967 could have possibly built a costume this advanced with moving muscular anatomy and all the other details we've discussed. But really think about what you see in the film. Muscle flexion, fat layers shifting, natural arm swing, compliant gait, and even visible toes. Even today, special effects experts struggle to recreate that level of realism without CGI. And thirdly, skeptics have claimed that in the restored portrait frame 364, you can see this reflection of a bald man's head and face in Paddy's eye. But Todd Gatewood, who did the restoration, has addressed this claim directly.
I want to address something that I've heard people say that's quite humorous to me, but it's regarding the eye of Paddy in this portrait. Some people seem to see an image of a person in there. I can't tell you anything about that. I added nothing to this photograph or portrait, and I took nothing away. So it's purely in the eye of the beholder, pareidolia.
Oh, pareidolia.
Part 6.
Oh, that's
Bob
kind of
Gimlin's
ironic.
story. At the heart of all this is a humble old cowboy named Bob Gimlin. He was with Rodger Patterson that day back in '67, and unlike Rodger, Bob never sought the spotlight. He never made much money off the film, and yet for decades he's told the exact same story about what he saw that day. He even passed a lie detector test about it. Think about it. If this was a hoax, Bob would have had to lie with a straight face for 57 years through ridicule, financial hardship, and even public humiliation.
Yeah, it's quite sad,
never
actually.
once changed
Like
his
the story behind him. Like, I think he was very much ridiculed when the film came out and his name was attached to it. And like people point to the fact that like Rodger had a fake Bob Gimlin, but I would say that was more so just out of respect because he didn't want to put his friend after Bob, made it clear that he didn't want to be a part of it. And like that was just for like stage shows and other things and talks. But I think like it doesn't discredit the film in any way that Rodger had like a fake Bob Goodman come along with him and stuff, because like it was done to like out of convenience to help out his friend and just to still have the show and someone talking about it as him. But like Bob didn't really do much with the film immediately after. And like now he does all the things like the documentaries, the shows, conventions, things like that, which I'd say is fine. Like let him do his thing, let him like earn back what he's done for his labor, his work, things like that. His part of the film, because both him and Rodger did this together. So I think that's very much something that needs to be addressed.
And frankly, I just don't buy the idea that anyone could fake sincerity like that for a lifetime.
I don't think so
Part
either,
7,
really.
The Unfinished Story. The Patterson Gimlin film is nearly 60 years old, but believe it or not, the story still isn't over. Bill Munns has hinted that there's new information coming, something that could even challenge hardcore Bigfoot believers. We don't know what this is yet, but one thing's for sure. The Patterson Gimlin film still isn't done surprising us.
Well, I can't explain what I'm about to say to you, but I'm aware of a piece of footage.
Okay, that's super interesting to learn about. And I agree, there's lots more we can learn from it. Lots more we can use to further the research towards Sasquatch phenomenon, things like that.
I can't explain what I'm about to say to you, but I'm aware of a piece of footage that surfaced. It has never been shown public. No one knows about it except a few researchers like me, because the people who have the footage were asking our appraisal of it. We cannot say anything until they publicly release their final film project that they're working on. It doesn't change the conclusion. Patty and the PGF are still real, but it adds a new wrinkle to the discussion that's really going to stun a lot of people and provoke a lot of debate and controversy.
So where does this leave us? Well, we've got incredibly restored film quality, soon to be released by Todd Gatewood, that shows details that no skeptic can explain. We've got unwavering eyewitness testimony for decades, and we have special effects and anatomy experts saying that this was no man in a suit. But we've also got this paradox at the center of it all. The film that proves Sasquatches are real, but the man who claimed he wore the suit may also have thought that he was legitimately telling the truth. That's why he passed a lie detector test. Nearly 60 years after it was captured, the Patterson Gimlin film still speaks to us today. And if you listen closely, as I've tried to do ever since having my own Sasquatch encounter, the truth is louder than ever. But it's also not necessarily as black and white as hardcore skeptics or hardcore believers might think. By the way, if you're interested in going deeper down the Sasquatch research rabbit hole with me, then I share my deepest research as well as early access to all new videos and behind-the-scenes footage over on my Patreon page. Link is in the description and pinned comment. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to Cabin.
Yeah, you're welcome, Cabin.
And let's keep searching for the truth about these mysterious beings together. I'll see you in the next video.
Awesome.
If you've ever wanted to be part...
So yeah, like I said, go support Cabin in the Woods. Lots of cool stuff going on there. And yeah, like super interesting video. Some stuff I never really thought about.
$1 a month will get you all of that, plus behind-the-scenes videos, 10% off all exclusive
So go
Cabin in the
support
Woods
him
merch,
if you found
full-length
a lot of this stuff
extended
interesting.
interviews, and voting power for upcoming video projects. To celebrate the launch, the first exclusive in the store membership. This really is the best way to support this work, get closer to true Bigfoot investigation, and help me keep pushing for answers.
Mm-hmm.
All links are in the description. I hope to see you on the inside.
Yeah, some neat stuff there. So yeah, there was the Cabin in the Woods video. Very cool. Lots of interesting stuff. Things I never really thought about. And things that reveal some things about the film that like you never really thought about, and like in all ways help support the film. Because I mean, you know, Bob Hieronymus, like if his story has any credit to it at all, like that could explain a few things of why he might think he's the guy in the suit, why they think they're the ones behind it. But yeah, like, because I even with this, or just the case that they're outright lying, like I still don't believe that they are the ones behind Patty herself in that film. You know, because again, like Rodger was filming a documentary, and I completely believe that he was looking for a suit to do dramatic recreations. Because you have to think about like the Legend of Bobby Creek. Like that film is a documentary and uses staged footage of someone in a suit to recreate the encounters. But the encounters actually happened, and they actually went out and filmed all this stuff. So that can do a lot for the film. So yeah, super interesting. It does a lot to like help the film in a few ways. And let me see if I'll find the one. I believe it is The Truth Is Out There video. And I might also react to a Cliff Barrickman video. Because Cliff Barrickman from Finding Bigfoot also had a pretty interesting video on it, so I'll probably pull that up eventually to show the other evidence of the film. Uh-oh. I just hope the music doesn't get me stream sniped.
This is not just an isolated artifact. This is a real dynamic
And of
signature
course, Jeff
of a
Meldrum.
consistent functional aspect of the foot.
And Bill Munster.
Remarkably compelling evidence. My research emphasis is on the form and function of the human foot and its evolutionary history.
Yeah, and I think that offers a real big perspective on the Bigfoot phenomenon. So I think his work was very important, and I need to find a lot of his books still and read them up on them, because I think they offer a lot of interesting insight that helps support the fact that this was an actual creature out there.
If I had nothing but the footprint evidence, the casts that were recovered from this site, I would be very convinced of the credibility of the film. The Sasquatch has retained the more primitive characteristic of a very flexible instep, a midfoot flexibility, which can be seen here. So as the heel comes up in the supporting foot, the heel moves somewhat independently of the rest of the foot. This allows for a combination of propulsion and prehension, or the grasping ability of the foot. That indicates the ability to navigate that very rugged, steep terrain that you can see surrounding this.
And that's an interesting way to think about it, because like if this was a fake creature, you wouldn't really have that much detail in how this thing moves, how this thing lives, its inner anatomy from viewing an actual piece of footage and seeing how the creature acts. So that's a super interesting detail that I think helps support the film in a lot of ways.
Film subject. That's a remarkable detail that is rarely drawn attention to. This is the contrast between the Sasquatch foot and the human foot.
Yeah. And I think it's super interesting because I think also I heard that this is similar to how like most apes, like gorillas, have it too. I don't know if I'm misremembering that, but I think Jeff Meldry even said it himself on one of his things. But this like piece of a shows like because most footprints are actually like this. They show that like how that flexibility is in the foot opposed to a human foot making that footprint. That's dramatic. I don't need no stream sniping or like takedowns. Oh boy. Lower the volume a little bit. Or just talk over things right here.
It can sometimes cause some of the substrate, in this case that sandbar, to be forced back up as a pressure ridge because of the arch, giving the foot a much more stable leverage, very different adaptation for walking. But that distinctive combination of features evident in the Sasquatch foot is very elegantly adapted to the habitat in which they're found in. And that motion was recorded in some of the footprints in a very dramatic way.
And
so
that's the other
this
piece
is
of
one of the
evidence that
casts from the
supports
Patterson Gimlin
this
film
being a
site.
genuine
Here you
encounter.
can see the negative space that's left as the substrate is pushed up by the pressure now over the forepart of the foot. You have to remember, a footprint is not a mold of a foot, but it's the record of the entire sequence of interactions of the foot with the substrate through the entire stance phase.
And that's definitely one of the significant things we shouldn't overlook, because we saw in the...
Yeah, that's right. And that's a very good thing to remember too, because I think even Cliff Barackman in his film, like the footprint is not the shape of the foot; it's the shape of the damage done by the foot. It's super interesting to think about, like recontextualizing a lot of the Bigfoot footprint evidence out there.
In the stabilization, that the foot was peeling off substantially. So there's a lot of flexibility in both directions, right? This isn't just some cast of a foot that you stuck onto the bottom of a shoe.
Or some carved wooden foot stompers that one attaches to some hiking boots and stomps around through the mud and the dirt and sand to leave spurious tracks. Certainly not. This is a living foot.
There you go. But yeah, super interesting there. Let's see, anything more? Let me see if I can find Cliff Barackman. That's probably didn't talk about there, but he has a dedicated video to it. Trying to see if I can find it, because I've watched it like lots of times. Let's see here. Let me try Oregon Bigfoot Museum. There you go. North American Bigfoot Center. I believe it is. I wonder if there's anything new. Yeah, he does a lot of evidence still, gathering things from Bigfoot. But here we go.
Here at the North American Bigfoot Center. Today we're going to do a deep dive into a piece of evidence that a lot of you are familiar with, but maybe not the breadth of the evidence that's available. We are going to take a nice close look at the Patterson Gimlin film site casts. Now, most people know about the Patterson Gimlin film site. It's, of course, the film of the creature walking from left to right across the sandbar. I think that you guys know that. Everybody knows that. But a lot of people don't realize how much evidence was gathered at the scene. In fact, it's one of the places where more evidence is gathered than anywhere else in all Bigfoot history. It turns out that when Rodger and Bob shot the film of the creature and the thing walked away, they got to work casting 2 footprints.
Yeah.
Those 2 footprints are right here. This is the right.
And we saw them before, as Jeff Meldrum showed.
And of course, if you're saying, wait a minute, Cliff, no, you have that backwards. No, you got to think of it like these are footprints in the ground, right? So don't get confused about that. A lot of people do. And the right and the left footprints were cast by Rodger and Bob that day, October 20th, 1967. After Rodger and Bob filmed the creature and poured plaster in 2 of its footprints, they set about filming various things at the site. But we've never seen it. All this stuff ended up on the second reel of the Patterson Gimlin film. The second reel has been lost. You see, when Rodger and Bob were there, they're filming background stuff for a documentary that Rodger wanted to put together. And then the last 58 seconds of the first reel is the Sasquatch walking across the sandbar. And then, of course, the film ran out. While they're at the scene, Rodger put a blanket over him and changed out that film for the second reel. And then they started shooting, film of the stuff in the ground. Bob Gimlin told me that they filmed him jumping off of a log to see how deep his footprints would go into the substrate. But we know for sure that somebody filmed the footprints in the ground, because that little snippet of footage, 2 or 3, 5 seconds, survives online on the internet. I don't know where they got it from, but here it is. In this piece of footage, you can see there are several footprints in the ground and one with plaster in it. So we know that they filmed it after Rodger and Bob poured plaster into the footprint. And that footprint is, of course, this one right here, because you can see left, right, left, right. That's this cast. But check out these other footprints. They're very, very interesting. Look at the flexibility that is evident in the foot based on the footprint.
Again, piece of evidence not many people talk about.
That's not all the evidence that was gathered, though. They shot the film on a Friday. Early Friday afternoon is the best guess at this point. But the following Monday, this gentleman named Lyle Laverty stumbled upon the site. He was a timber cruiser at the time. A timber cruiser is a person who basically kind of goes and chooses the logs or the trees that they're going to cut down, when the logging company comes through. So he was cruising timber in the area, and he stumbled across the footprints. And he took photographs of the footprints in the ground. And that's very fortuitous, and you'll see why in just a minute. Fast forward 9 days or so, and Bob Titmus discovers the film site. When Bob Titmus got on the scene, he cast 10 footprints, irregardless of quality. No matter how pretty they looked in the ground, he put plaster in them. That's an amazing feat. Well, no pun intended. It's an amazing feat because these casts give us the most information about the way the Sasquatch's feet interacted with the ground. That's really important because if you notice, Rodger and Bob's casts are very, very clean. They just basically look like the bottom of the foot, right? Not a lot of information in here. That's because the early researchers and also some current day researchers have it all wrong. They are casting the cleanest, nicest, prettiest looking footprints. Because
that was another interesting thing to learn about, like how typically you would always see that perfect foot, but you get more information out of other footprints that aren't the cleanest because it shows how things move. When it comes to documenting the footprint evidence, I think it's important that we get tracks of all kind. And Cliff does a good job of this. There's a lot of videos on his channel where you can find him document not even just footprints, because there's handprints, things like that. There's also, he has like a butt print in his museum, which is funny. And there's lots of other famous casts that are not just the footprint evidence, it's just like handprints. There's even the Skookum cast, which is believed to be like a whole imprint of like the back and legs and arms of like a Sasquatch laying in the mud. So that's a really interesting way to look at it. So there's a lot of evidence people don't think about, especially with the Patterson Gimlin film. That trackway had to be left by something and not just someone with boots on.
They want to get an idea of what the feet actually look like. That's a mistake. You should cast the messy ones. Yeah, sure, cast a nice one or two if you have lots of plaster and lots of footprints, but cast the messy ones too. The messy ones give us the most information about whether those footprints are real or fake. And these casts made by Bob Titmus, all 10 of them, tell a really amazing story if you have eyes to see. Now, I have 3 of those footprints.
Like I was saying, that like it can show the most information of how a living thing moves, and like the story of just like it's like you can see flexibility in something that's moving, like which a lot of Bigfoot footprints do, because you're not gonna get that out of a rigid casts or something like that. Like at most, you would need like an animatronic foot that can animate itself, which isn't something people are gonna be able to do or make or have the time to do, the money, even like the motivation to do that.
Casts here. And as it turns out, lucky for us, Lyle Laverty, remember he was on the site the following Monday? Lyle Laverty, it turns out, photographed 2 of the footprints that Bob Titmus would later go to pour plaster in. This is by far the most famous. I even call this the Laverty cast, even though he didn't cast it, because right there, this.
I believe that's the one Jeff Meldrum also held earlier.
This raised mound of dirt, the mid-tarsal ridge, is very evident in this cast. It's probably one of the most famous photographs and casts in the world because of this. It's like the textbook example of midfoot flexibility in Sasquatch feet. But this other cast is nothing to sneeze at either, because look at this. Same foot, same track line, and what you see here is right in this area is a big jumbled mess. But this is one of those casts that Laverty photographed the footprint of in the ground. So let's look at that footprint, and you can see that, oh yeah, this is all just jumbled sand that kind of held together as the forepart of the foot pushed backwards and kind of separated everything. So it didn't make a ridge like in this other cast. This sand stuck together in some ways and kind of moved separately, which is why it looks like such a jumbly mess in this area. But when you look at it, especially when you compare the casts, look how well that lines up. If the toes are at the same angle, this ridge is at the same place that this jumbly mess is. It's because it was made by
very
the same
important
creature.
detail that I think needs serious discussion and research on.
At the mid-tarsal joint. We have one other cast here, and it's a really nice looking cast, but really doesn't tell us a whole lot about the structure of the foot. This is another Titmus cast that we have on display here at the North American Bigfoot Center. But even then, it's pretty interesting. We have an example
like
of that
typical
same foot here,
clean foot,
2 nice clean
which
casts.
might be just how it
And
looks.
if we compare these to the other Titmus casts, we can see right where the mid-tarsal joint is in this cast. So right here is where the jumbly mess starts to happen. If I go across, oh yeah, I can feel there's a raised mound of dirt right here. I can feel the difference in the bone structure from here to here. It's very, very subtle though. Now these frames here show all 10 of the Titmus casts together. Dr. Meldrum has given me these to use as I see fit, and this is a really, really good use of this particular frame. So we can see all 10 of the casts in this composite picture. And of course, in this picture, all the casts are moved slightly to a 45-degree angle. In this final composite picture, all of the casts have been turned 90 degrees to the plane of the film. And that gives us a really good view at where...
Yeah, it really shows how this thing isn't just some stomper.
In the casts, the mid-tarsal pressure ridges or pressure discs, depending on the substrate at the time. So even though all of these casts, like this one and this one, come from the same foot, look at the difference in length in the cast, right? Some people say, oh, well, that foot's so much larger than this foot. No. No.
Kind of seem nervous how he's holding those things by like the fingertips.
Because the footprint is not the shape of the foot.
Although I think those are
It's
just
the
copies.
shape of the
So
damage done to the
it's not
ground
like
by
the
the
originals.
foot.
I hope so
as
anyway.
The thing walks by. Because as the foot comes down and makes contact with the soil and rolls through the motion, the last piece of the foot that's in contact is the forepart of the foot. And that's where the pressure of the push-off is as the creature steps forward. And that part of the foot, from the mid part of the foot to the toes, should be pushed a little bit deeper than the rest of the foot, and it should also be the most true to the size of the actual foot, as opposed to the damage done to the ground by the foot, right? And look at the composite. Look how congruent all 10 of these casts are. You can clearly see from the toes to the mid part of the foot is basically the exact same size in every single cast. Even though the heel impression might have been elongated or some slippage or pushing in and out or something like that, the heel part of the foot changes from foot to foot to foot to foot, but the fore part of the foot is always the same. And that is some very compelling evidence. This is not the only situation where we see this. We also have the Dr. Meldrum footprint line from 1996 that Dr. Meldrum cast in 5 Points, Washington. Let's take a look at those. Here's one of the casts. We actually sell these in the shop if you ever want to get a copy. Shameless plug. But here's one of the casts that Dr. Meldrum took that day. Looking at the side, you can clearly see that where the midfoot flexibility comes into play when interacting with the substrate. We have 2 other casts here from the same track line that show just the forepart of the foot, the toe slide, and then the half cast. And look how nicely those are congruent if I line the toes up. Now, if I take either one of these and line them up with that full cast that I just showed you, the congruency is amazing, completely flabbergasting in my opinion. That if this is not real, the hoaxer sure did a bang-up job and has a really thorough and complex understanding of primate foot anatomy. And I'll tell you what, man, Paul Freeman, as good a guy as he was, did not have that understanding. But yet, here we are. And then, of course, Sasquatches are very rare animals in general. So when there's a bunch of footprint casts from any one particular area, we should be looking to see if we have any recurring individuals from that same place. Maybe the same Sasquatch comes through more often than once, and then we have
Yeah, so that, like, I always wondered, like, what Patty's life was after getting filmed. I mean, you think about the lifespan. What these creatures are, like, it's super interesting to think about. Like, might Patty still be alive today? Because, I mean, if she was around maybe the same age, human-wise, as Rodger, or Rodger and Bob still lives today. A good life. So maybe Patty might still be out there. I would hope so. It'd be super interesting to think about.
prints from a number of different incidents. And that's what we have here. Dr. Meldrum cast these prints in February 1996. But 5 years earlier, and just a handful of miles away, we have the very famous 1991 trackway. And this is a cast from there. This trackway is almost certainly 95% or more the same Sasquatch making both of these footprints. Sasquatches frequent the same areas. I know I do. I go to the same supermarkets. I go to the same pubs.
That's another interesting thing to think about, like having the same individual make the tracks. I think there's only a few
5 Points is only a few miles
that are
away
like
from
that.
Mill Creek, where this cast was taken. But let's line this one up with these other ones to see if the midfoot is the same. Spoiler alert, it's gonna be. Sure enough, there you go. You can clearly see where the midfoot flexibility is. You can see the entire forepart of the foot is almost exactly congruent, and it shouldn't be exactly congruent because that would indicate stompers of some sort. But you have toe variation in splay. You have positioning differences. You have all sorts of stuff, but the general shape is right there because that's where the Sasquatch puts most of the force upon push-off when going to the next step. This level of congruency should not be there if Sasquatches are not real animals. But here it is. People ask me, what is the best piece of evidence? And they expect me to say the Patterson Gimlin film or this one particular cast, but it's not. It's how everything fits together. It's like one puzzle piece at a time, you know? You're doing a jigsaw puzzle and you aren't gonna pick up one piece and say, oh, those are really, really cute cats sitting inside mugs. Look how cute this is.
Mhm.
No, you have to see how the whole thing lines up together.
Mhm.
You have to
Yeah, and that's really interesting of looking at the whole thing. So yeah, now again, like having been like 58 years since then, like a lot of stuff has come out, and to think it was just like one piece of film that is now lost. We should do more work to really bring out everything we know about the Patterson Gimlin film. There is a lot to discuss, a lot more to find out, and like for me, I've always seen it as the best piece of evidence by far. And that's not to say other pieces of evidence haven't come as close to it, but it is interesting to think about how there is no as conclusive evidence for it in the widestream media. Because if you look into a lot of the new video evidences that have come out since then, there's a few that have slipped through the cracks of being truly genuine pieces of evidence. And like one piece of evidence is, I believe it was also featured on the Finding Bigfoot show of the, I forget the name, but that one thermal image of was believed to be a Sasquatch. I believe it is a Sasquatch, a genuine piece of footage. I was taken, I believe, in Florida. I just forget the name of the person who recorded it, but that is a very nice piece of evidence that even when you compare it to the side by side that they made of the recreation, it's clearly something inhuman, and it's not anything other than what it could be, which is a Sasquatch. So let's see. Oh boy. And yeah, let's see, what more is there to talk about? I guess it would be unfair to not point out, I think, one discrepancy with the whole thing that I think even was brought up, or at least I can bring up right now since they did mention here. Let's see. Let's see. Because the thing is, there is a discrepancy in some stories of when Bob Gilman says they filmed it. I believe in one interview he said it was a Saturday, but it always shows up as a Friday whenever you look into the day that it actually was. It comes out as a Friday, which might be an honest mistake. It might have to do something with the fact that, technically speaking, Rodger Patterson had was basically running late on returning the camera he was renting. And I believe there was even an arrest warrant for him at the time. And so I can believe that it was probably due to that there's a discrepancy with the time and date. But all sources point to it being a Friday as a day to where the filming took place in 1967. So there's that. But like I can see it as an honest mistake. Like unless anyone does a deep dive on that to see what just to see what comes out of it, because I think it's important to mention at times, unless Bob Goodman has addressed it thus far. but I've never seen anything about it other than that one Armored Skeptic video that brought it up. I think it is that video does a lot of good work. I still wouldn't really. I think his video hinged on the fact that he got the dates wrong, but other than that, like some pretty good work there. But again, I still see this as a genuine piece of. I believe it to be a genuine recording of a Sasquatch and things like that. Let's see what's to do here. What's to do? Let's see. I wonder if Let's just show off my background here because I did love this piece that I did for the Cryptic Happenings podcast, and it has been a while since the first one, which featured Lizard King Productions, who was in the chat earlier. I was thinking maybe just for him, if he wants to come on today, I can do like an after party thing after Zimzilla 99 stream, which I believe is also the day, and actually in a few minutes, which I might be departing for, if he's doing a an open stream for it, I might hop on that. So I might or may not do that. An after party stream for more people if they want to show up for it. Because it would be nice to have more people to discuss on it, but it is what it is. I had to schedule it for now because I scheduled it first. Zim scheduled his later at 1. I did it a little earlier today just because I woke up and wanted to get more time in to go over everything. But so I might do an after party stream. That way Lizard King can come on for a bit later and have a discussion on it. And all that. But we'll see. We'll see how the evening turns out. And I have to check if Zim's stream is open. But yeah, like again, it's super cool to think about. In over 58 years, this film is still like the king of Bigfoot, or the queen, to be clear, for Patty. And like there still hasn't been any evidence that truly matches what the Patterson Gimlin film is. And for just the sake of this, let's see if we can find a nice showing of it. Just looking for the Patterson Gimlin film. Let's see. And then I'll mute it because I don't know what kind of music is on this thing. But again, like it is very interesting to see. Share my screen. Boom. There it is. There she goes. And then, like, I think as mentioned before, there's a lot to her that. And also, going in reverse is interesting to see. You can see where there's a lot of the true, genuine movement. Like, she's not rigid in any place. There isn't any, there's not a zipper or anything you can see. You can see how things move, and, costumes can move too with movement. But I would say there's a fair point to be made that, like, it's more attributed to muscle movement and stuff, things like that. Because, look there. There's a fluidity to her too that like you just really couldn't get in a costume in this environment. Because that's the thing too. If it's a costume, that person is going through hell right now. Because moving in a costume in the woods and on that kind of day, since it looks like it's just a nice clear sunny day, which Bob Gimlin always describes it as like that person's going through hell. And anyone who's worn a costume knows that that is not the easiest thing to do. It's very much easy to get overheated, and it is very much easy to, pass out from heat stroke, things like that. And it just goes to show the amount of work that it takes for suit actors to go through. But, to me, just from what I see, the impression I get, it doesn't look like a costume. It doesn't move like a costume. And there are some things you can attribute it to being costume. I know there's like that one crease in the thigh that many say could be like just a crease of a costume, but there's also valid explanations I feel for why it's there. It could just be the way the muscle forms, or it could just be a crease in the fur patterns of Patty. Since we do see that the way the arms move, they sway in a motion that could mean that the hair there has been shaped over the lifespan of the creature so that the hair creases there when the arm or the hand pushes against it. And I think even here in the video, you can see some movement. I'm going to see if it shows up. You can see the movement of the feet. The arms move, the hands move in a way that indicate that this thing is like living. And also like the way the arms and the elbows form. Like it can't just be a guy with extensions, since people have shown that like the elbow would be placed all wrong, or so it's clearly just the anatomy of what Sasquatches are believed to look like. And like even there, you can see like the jiggling of the mammary glands as they move. The glutes have always been said to be rigid, but there is movement there. I believe it's just the buildup of the fur on the glute muscles. But you can see there's movement there, so they're not like rigid, static, like pants or something like that. Like there's probably like a lot more movement. Like if you had shaved her down, you would see it moving more, but just a lot more interesting to see. But yeah, I guess ending it off with the footage. Let's say it one more time from the top. But just ending it with that. There you go. There's Patty. Now she's walking away from us now. She will return in many more years to come. Let's see here. I'm just going to be checking if Zim stream is still going on. I might keep the stream going actually just for... might keep the stream going for longer if Zim isn't doing his thing. Let's see here. Oh, looks like it's been pushed back an hour. So yeah, I'll keep going, I guess. Opening it up to a more general thing here, but yeah. Oh no. Or I might end it off and keep doing that after party thing. I will share the referral link though. Since I do have a referral link for StreamYard. If you want to start streaming through this platform, I do have a referral link where you can sign up and get a $10 discount on the premium feature for StreamYard, which offers a lot of cool a lot of cool features that for things like more guests are able to come on. You're able to stream for longer periods of time. You're able to get a lot more stuff for your streaming things, and it's just a really cool asset. It's helped me a lot with streaming here, and the journey has just been a lot of fun, and it just makes things like a lot easier to do. Yeah, you get that referral link, and as well, you do tend to you tend to get a lot out of it and stuff. So okay, let me know if anyone coming on has any thoughts on the Patterson Gimlin film. What do you think of it? Do you think it's real? Do you think it's faked? Is there something in between that people don't know about? Comment down below. We just went over a bunch of stuff regarding the history, several conflicting facts, some things that like turns out that might be a new way of thinking of it. Because if Bob Hieronymus if there's any truth to that claim, he may have been one of the suit actors for the documentary recreations, but it seems Rodger and Gimlin may have actually caught something on that then. And things like that. Trying to think of anything else we might want to go over in celebration of the film. And then, let's see. Also, I want to shout out my own show for my video I uploaded reviewing the 2002 Super Kaiju Super 7 figure I got yesterday. Check that out. Help give me a boost on YouTube. Would be really nice. Let's see. I also have commissions open as well at the moment. Working on a few right now too. Any support through there would also really help me. You can find me on Vic Monstrous or Vic's Monstrosities on Twitter. I go by Crispy Vic as well on other platforms and profiles, so check me out there as well. Let's see. And just to go over like some of my final thoughts, since I might just close it out at the 2-hour mark. Bigfoot to me is just the most interesting phenomenon, and I want nothing more in the world, or there's other things, but I do want to have my own genuine encounter. It might take some work to do that, since I would have to go into the woods to do that. I've gone camping before and things like that, but I've never really done field work. My friend Lizard King Productions has, and he shared his stories on the first episode of the Cryptic Happenings podcast. So check that out as well. And I genuinely believe Bigfoot is a true creature. And my reason for that is because, as I mentioned before, at the very least, I have to take people who have encountered Sasquatch in some way. I have to take them at their word, and it doesn't matter to me if they don't have any evidence of it. It's mostly just because I've had my own strange encounters. I've shared before, I've seen a genuine phantom or a ghost, which is how I know that some form of afterlife must exist. And then I have seen a UFO before, And that's how I know that the phenomenon of UFOs, in terms of them being some type of aerial vehicle that may or may not be piloted by alien life or some sort of secret government technology, I know that those have to be genuine, given that I've seen that before and there's no real way to explain it in terms of any modern or conventional means. And so even if someone only has their word to go on, I can believe them because I can relate to not having the evidence to back up your word. And I know I'm not lying. I have no evidence to prove my encounters, but they were encounters I had. And by that extension, I have to believe that the reports of people who have clearly seen them, clearly encountered them, like no room for doubt of it being a misidentification or a hoax. I have to believe that those were genuine encounters, and therefore there must be some sort of animal out there that has remained elusive enough to where there's no clear documentation of a specimen or any clear documentation of any clear as can be as something like the Patterson Gimlin film, which is only dubious due to the fact that we don't have a specimen. Like if bears were just as elusive, then we probably would be. And that's also not a stretch to say, because even in the biology world, just because you film something and present it to the experts, you could never really say that was a genuine piece unless you have a specimen or some other thing to back it up. Because like you can have like if you watch any of the Forrest Galante stuff with his work on Lazarus species and extinct species, just because he filmed something that was believed to be extinct doesn't mean it's not anymore, because you would need the type specimen to prove that, or some sort of even DNA evidence directly taken from it to prove that it's still a thing. And that's a good criteria to go by, because it works in the absolutes, which is what science is, the absolute observation of how things are. And so like even again, it's the only reason the Patterson Gimlin film is dubious at all, because there is nothing to compare it to. There is no dead body, there is no type specimen, there is no concrete DNA evidence, even though there has been stuff collected before that, for one reason or another, just because we don't have that type specimen to compare it to, it'll always either be inconclusive evidence of what it is. That's all it is. It's inconclusive because there's nothing to compare it to prove it. So even the best video evidence will always be called into question, and that's almost like a catch-22 of some sort, I want to say. Because you can have evidence as good as the Patterson Gimlin film, but still it will never really live up to either the experts or skeptics who deny its existence or don't believe its existence. But because of my own experiences, I must believe that there is something to it. There's a creature behind all of the sightings, and I must believe that there is a creature out there that we have yet to fully uncover. And with that, I will probably end off the stream unless anything mysterious happens. But that's how it goes here at the Cryptic Happenings podcast. Hopefully, people will look back and enjoy the time we spent here. I want to give a thanks to Hoshi again for showing up. Lizard King Productions. Again, hopefully, if you have the time, And if you watch this back, I may do an after party here, depending on how long Zimstream goes, if it's open. Or I actually might just do another Cryptic Happenings follow up. Episode 3, we maybe discuss more about the 50th anniversary and like how far we've come. And you can share more stories as well. That's always more than welcome to. Hopefully it'll come out sooner than it has, only because a lot of things happened. I guess a few things happened. It's been a while since my last few video uploads or shorts and stuff recently, just because work has been a big thing. And I'll also announce here that I am going to be doing work with the upcoming Godzilla Day pop-up shop that will be happening next month. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to be doing a lot of work there, both here and there. So I'll do my best to do some uploads and things like that. I might do a vlogging thing of working in the store and stuff. And then hopefully I might be doing some work or collabing with D-Man 1954. I have been talking to him here and there recently about doing stuff for the Godzilla store. I might be saying some stuff his way that he may be reporting on, which would be awesome. Thanks D-Man again for shouting me out on some of the stuff I've shown him. That's always cool to hear. But thank you again, Kaiju Seekers, or should I say Cryptid Seekers, for this segment of the podcast. Let me know down below your thoughts and stuff. Maybe we'll go over them again in the next Cryptic Happenings podcast. Discuss, theorize, and speculate, because there's going to be a lot more to come. Looking forward to everything that's going to be happening. Stay tuned. Thank you again. All right, Kaiju Seekers. Thanks again. Over and out.